Well, hey there. It is week number 4. Welcome to EDUT 501. So, week number 4, you start off with some Scott McCloud videos. You get to hear his TED Talk, talking a little bit about transforming schools. Um, Recently, Scott McCloud on, as my mom refers to it as the Twitters, she also calls them the YouTubes. Scott has been nervous about opening schools and keeping students, teachers, staff safe, as I think we all should be. But it's been really interesting, I think, just in the last really 6 months to see how educators are behaving differently on social media. So as you continue to use Twitter as an educator, as a professional, if this is new to you, I will say for me, Twitter in particular looks and feels quite different. Instagram as well. Like I would say a year ago, most of what nearly all of my ed tech friends and colleagues and people posted was about like technology in the classroom and in schools and tools and pedagogy and all the great things. In the last 6 months, it has pivoted for the people I follow pretty substantially, really focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion, really like actively being anti-racist and not just kind of like, we can all get along, yay, but really taking like an active stand. Particularly, I'm noticing this on Instagram stories, which is not something that's a requirement of this course, but that it's been really interesting seeing how educators are taking a stand and being active around being more equitable and inclusive as an educator and about their roles in schools and how their roles either promote current systems of racism or interrupt those systems. And then in particular, like the last, since mid-March, looking at COVID-19, and I know this is on your mind a lot, this is on my mind constantly, clearly is completely changing what education is and the systems we have in place. And in this regard, it's interesting seeing the different interviews from Scott McCloud from years ago, and then seeing what he's been sharing recently. So yeah, it's good stuff. He cares a lot about students, and I think that'll come through as you look at his talk. In addition to those 2 videos, you have another chapter of the Robinson book, and then you have a threaded discussion around it. And this, I almost want to reread again chapter 4 and then see like the lens of the discussion prompt, knowing that most of you, definitely my school, is full remote right now. And that like imagining like 5 to 15-year-olds completely doing remote learning, a year ago, I would have been like, that will never happen. And yet here we are. Like our school just finished our first week of school, and every single student was remote. It's crazy. So looking at what direct instruction is, looking at online access to knowledge and how that does or does not change how we do learning and how we guide students. It's all really interesting. So be super curious. I think that this chapter in the Sir Ken Robinson book is particularly like has a different lens on it than it ever has before. So feel free to bring in your current experiences as an educator right now and what that means, like knowing that most students across the world, around the world, I guess, are in some version of remote learning. And I think it changes things a lot. While I'm thinking of remote instruction, I hope you're hanging in there. It's just so much, like whatever your role is right now as an educator, there is just so much new and unknown and scary and kind of all the things. So continue to hang in there. Your time for getting an EdTech Master's is both the perfect time, as a lot of you talked about in your week 1 posts, but also like an insane time because like your normal jobs and lives just can't go on autopilot. Not that they ever can as an educator, but in some way, like you can just be like, all right. And like there are many times where, particularly when I was teaching second grade, I had done that a number of years, was able just to kind of turn the page in the math book and be like, this is what we're learning today because it's the next page in the textbook. And for better and worse, um, that's what I was doing when life was crazy. When you had a newborn and you're running on like 2 hours of sleep, for example. Another example might be when there's, a global pandemic and fires are burning all across the state you may live in. All of these things make it hard to kind of go on autopilot for anything, for the masters, for your role as an educator. So continue to hang in there. I also mentioned fires. We're back home. We are safe. A number of you reached out to me. Thank you. That was exceedingly thoughtful and kind. So we're doing okay. The air quality is finally better where we live. We're just south of San Jose, which is great because now it's a heat wave. So yeah, I'm glad we didn't have all three of those too much. Global pandemic plus fires plus triple digits. I think for us it's 109 coming up on the Sunday. We'll see if that sticks, but my goodness, like please stay safe. It is crazy. So I talked about Stop McCloud. I talked about the discussion board posts. You have another couple pages looking at the Brumbaugh text, particularly on Google Forms. Those are fantastic. One of my favorite videos I've ever recorded is John Caribbo talking about QBold, what it is. It's fantastic. The only things you really have this week, you have a practice quiz. This is ungraded, but you still need to do it. The biggest thing about that is actually connecting it with the Google Forms Brumbaugh sections as a way, and I'm just naming this right now, that you as the student will take a quiz and instantly get feedback on it, which is pretty cool. Reminds me a little bit of actually the Apple Teacher. If you're not an Apple teacher, you should look at that at some point, in your free time, where you essentially take 5 questions as a kind of multiple choice test because they want to get you your certification instantly without somebody needing to actually grade it. So it's the same sort of thing. Like if you need just a checking for understanding, Google Forms turned into a quiz, fantastic way to go. Looking ahead, I would encourage you to begin looking at your week 5 assignment, creating an infographic. You looked a little bit about it this past week with your groups. And the last thing you need to be doing is a checkpoint. So there's a Google Doc that gives you directions on communicating at the end of the week. So that is all. And yeah, happy week 4, everybody. Be safe, stay home if you can, and happy week 4.